Chapter 4: Retro Pop Culture Magic. Pop culture magic isn't magic focused on whatever is the trendiest or most popular show, book, etc., currently occurring in media, although some expressions of pop culture magic can work off such trends. What makes pop culture magic powerful has a lot more to do with the attachment a given person feels to their pop culture choices. The connection you have to your pop culture of choice is what drives the pop culture magic work you do. It's not surprising then that for some people, the pop culture they work with is the pop culture from decades ago. It's the pop culture they grew up with, and it continues to play a role in their lives, including their spiritual practices. Ironically, at one time, companies treated shows and other forms of pop culture media as a one-time event that people would lose interest in after having perused it once, or because program ratings were declining. Jenkins, Ford, and Green, 2013. The episode film stills of the original Doctor Who series were thrown out because the BBC didn't think that people would want to watch them again. This rather short-sighted approach to dealing with pop culture materials resulted in missing episodes of the original series and other episodes that were only recovered because fans of the show at the time happened to record them. Pop culture may not always be popular to lots of people, but someone will find it interesting and find a way to keep it alive. The British cultural critic and theorist Raymond Williams suggests that cultural change occurs at variable rates. As a result, we can be influenced by things, experiences, practices, values, artifacts, institutions, long after they have lost cultural centrality. Ultimately, William asserts that how culture operates can only be fully understood by looking at the ebb and flow of cultural influences rather than taking a static snapshot of specific content or groups. Jenkins, Ford, and Green, 2013, pages 95 through 96. If you look at a pop culture phenomenon over the long run, you'll find that it tends to come and go in waves. Consider the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Originally, they were created for a comic book series, and then eventually were picked up for a cartoon series. This was followed by movies. Then for a while, the cartoons and movies were shown as reruns. Then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came back in another cartoon series. And at the time of this writing, a new movie was recently released. Ghostbusters is another example where you had movies followed by a cartoon show, then reruns, and now there is talk of creating a new movie. Pop culture becomes popular, then fades, then becomes popular again. It never dies because it becomes part of the popular consciousness. Other examples include Star Wars, Star Trek, G.I. Joe, and the list can go on and on. What retro pop culture also brings about is a focus on collecting pop culture artifacts. In the documentary Jedi Junkies, several collectors were featured who collected multiple versions of Star Wars characters. Enthusiasts collect the pop culture artifacts because they want them for nostalgic purposes or for potential monetary value down the line. However, for the pop culture magician, the value of collecting pop culture artifacts has more to do with how you will use them in your workings. You might find the original packaging interesting, and you might even keep your collectibles in that packaging. But if you plan to use those figures for magical purposes, you won't want them in the packaging. The same applies for any other pop culture artifact you get. For the magician, collecting isn't about keeping something in pristine condition, but about integrating the pop culture artifact into the magical working. You can take action figures and dolls and use them as the housing units for the pop culture entities they represent, or for an entity you create. They will be empowered by the people noticing them. Chapter 4